I remember looking at myself in the mirror one day, and the person who was staring back at me was unrecognizable. And she looked so deflated, like somebody had just taken a vacuum and sucked out
All the life.
everything. All the life was just gone. I mean, and physically, my face was droopy.
Yeah.
I had no color. My cheekbones were sticking out. I was just there.
Yeah.
I was existing, but not really alive.
Living. Yeah.
And I ran to my husband and I said, Mike, I can't wake up when I was 80 years old and regret not living my life because I was too sad to be a part of it. I said, I have to figure out how to shine even in the darkest moments of my life.
Hey, Freedom family. Welcome to the Unlock Your Freedom podcast. My name is Kira Miller. I am the founder and host of this series. Every other week, we'll bring you some of the most life-giving conversations that will empower you to overcome your shame, own your truth, and unlock your freedom. Thank you for joining this conversation today. Now let your freedom journey begin. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Unlock Your Freedom podcast. My name is Kira Miller and I am the founder and host of this series. Today's guest we had on Ashley Lemieux, who is the founder of the Shine Project, which is an awesome organization where they're empowering female to really embrace their shine in the midst of darkness. She's also a speaker and an author, and it was probably one of the most powerful podcasts that I think I've ever had, because she talked so much about losing her identity. Specifically, she adopted children and she went through with the adoption process and it was all good and fine. And then actually the children were stripped from her. And beyond that, her entire identity was stripped from her as a mother. But also during the court cases, people said some horrific things about her. And so she really had to question, who am I? Am I this really good person that I always thought I was? Or am I actually this evil person that these people are telling me I am? Which just relates to my story so much because, except I was kind of on the opposite side where I did things wrong. As you know, I've shared my story. I've catfished people and I felt like I was the bad person. And these lies just tried to convince me that I'm not good. And I literally had to redefine my identity of okay, who is Kira actually? Is she actually this really good person? Or is she this person that hurts people and that is bad? And having to redefine my identity was so difficult for me. But I've really realized that I am actually, my intentions are good. And I do believe now that I'm a good person because I've been able to really own my truth and unlock my freedom. So I am just so stoked to share this one with you today because not only are you going to really feel the pain and the power in her story, but I really believe that it's going to help you to kind of embrace the shame that you've had to go through in life, own your truth, and really start to absolutely break the chains in your life and unlock your freedom. So without further ado, here we go. So who would you say Ashley Lemieux was in the beginning of your journey with feeling really voiceless?
Man, if we want to go way far back,
We can.
When I was little, I was the shyest person ever. And I would go to school throughout the day and I'd be asked questions and I literally wouldn't answer them. And I would run home and I would get my little notebook and I would write down everything that I wish I would have said throughout the day and then throw it underneath my bed. And so I developed this love for writing, but for some reason, I can't really pinpoint a moment as to why I was that way, but I was always very shy to use my voice. And then I always just didn't think that anybody would listen to it. Or even if I did speak up or say something, that it didn't matter. So that kind of carried me through and kind of became this common theme in my life.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting that you're talking specifically about this because in my life right now, I'm learning how voiceless that I've been. And I'm not really shy, but I haven't realized how much I haven't shared my heart with people, I guess. And I've realized it's because I'm like afraid and I don't think that what I have to say matters, essentially.
Yes.
So, which is also kind of weird because I didn't realize how much it impacts your physical health too.
Yes.
Like I have to clear my throat all the time.
Yes.
And
Oh my gosh.
Can we talk about holistic health?
Yeah. Can we talk about this? Because literally
so
I just
down.
went to my 2 intuitive
Yeah.
therapists this week, but we've been doing throat work on myself because throughout the years, and especially, you know, so part of my journey of trying to figure out my voice was when my husband and I became parents overnight to 2 children who were 4 and 6 at that time.
Okay.
And we raised our kids for over 4 years. We were a family in every sense of the word. And then during the final steps of adoption, we entered into an very unexpected contested adoption. Okay. So during that time in court, I wasn't allowed to say anything. I wasn't allowed to tell anyone what was going on. I wasn't allowed to defend myself. I was being just berated on a level that was destroying me.
Yeah.
So after it was all over and I could say whatever I wanted, and I started to try to use my voice, I literally would get this huge lump in my throat right under where my lymph node is. And it was like I couldn't speak. It would all just get stuck right there.
So it's literally like your voice is just getting stuck.
It just gets stuck. But so where our throat, that's where we say our truth. And and if we don't believe that that's valuable, it leads to serious physical conditions. So I've been doing a lot of work just to allow myself to let that go and to believe from the deepest parts inside of me that my voice is important and that it's safe to come out.
Right. Totally. Well, like going back to even in your childhood and stuff, what were the voices in your head telling you when you were not really speaking up? Because for me, I think it was very much like, 1, what you say doesn't matter. 2, you're bad, which just going back to things in my life, like I did things that I wasn't really proud of. And so the voices for me were always, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. And kind of like what you say is not significant, which again goes back to the what you say doesn't matter.
And I think I had similar voices running through my head. Mine wasn't that I was bad, but it was that I have to stay really good.
Okay.
I have to be good. Like I'm the good
that's how you
girl.
Earn love.
Yeah, I'm the good daughter. I'm the good friend. I'm the good sister. I'm the good student. And so I have to stay that way. And in order to stay that way, that means that I can't say things that other people might not want to hear from me.
Like maybe vulnerable things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Dang. And so you didn't really break out of that then until like the whole adoption situation.
Well, in college, I broke out of it a little bit.
Business, right?
Yeah. So during college, I started my own company called The Shine Project. I always wanted to be a writer, so I started a little blog on the internet. This is before the days of social media or anything. And for whatever reason, when I write, that's how my voice would come through. It would come through on paper, so I could write whatever. So I started my own company called The Shine Project. But it was probably a couple of years before that where I realized that if I wanted to have the impact on people's lives that I knew that I could and that I knew would fulfill me throughout my life, that I had to get over myself and I had to start using my voice in a way that would help serve others. And I couldn't do that if I was just terrified all the time.
Yeah. And who were like the specific population of people that you felt like you could speak up for?
So when I was a senior in college, I was also newly married, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life when I graduated.
Yeah.
And so I took an internship at a inner city high school in Phoenix. And I was helping teach a class that prepared juniors and seniors in high school to go to college.
Okay.
And as I met this group of students who just were so smart and had so much potential and so many things that they wanted to do with their lives, but then the lack of resources that they had, the lack of mentorship that they have, the lack of financial means that they had to go to college was just so overwhelming. And so I thought that if I could use the blog that I had started to help have a platform and for these students to use their voice so that we could help find them support to go to school, that I could kind of help be a voice for them.
Okay. So with your outlet, like, was it called The Shine Project, the blog?
Yeah, it was called The Shine Project.
Okay. And were these people like were you sharing their stories, and or like were you directly sharing their stories, or were you kind of sharing your like experiences with them?
Both.
Cool.
So
Okay.
when the Shine Project started, and still to this day, it's a community for women to come and find resources and tools that will help them shine in their daily lives.
Okay.
And I thought that if we could connect the women who were reading my blog, and my blog grew really quickly so that by the time I graduated from college, I didn't need to go find a full-time job. I was making enough income through advertising on my blog to solely go all in on the Shine Project. So as I decided that I was going to help tell these students stories, I would tell my audience kind of my experience, but then also the students would tell their own stories too. So it was kind of a mix of both.
Yeah. And did you start getting like speaking gigs at all during that time, or no?
Yeah, probably a couple of years after I started speaking. Yeah.
So did you feel like you were starting to break out like literally vocally because you had these speaking opportunities, or not quite yet at that point?
Yeah, I felt like, at that time, I don't think using my voice was something that I was viewing as
personal,
really positive.
Oh, yes.
Because I was seeing positive impact being made by my voice, and people were listening, and my blog was growing, and then Instagram launched, and then that launched a whole new thing platform, and a whole new way to reach more people. And so I felt like I felt really comfortable and confident in what I had to say and what I had to offer.
Okay. So yeah, if you don't mind, just like walk me through the process of like when you said you were in court and stuff, people were saying things about you and really, really difficult things, and maybe you started to believe them and stuff. So walk me through kind of what those things were and like how you allowed that to define you maybe too.
Yeah, so what's really a really important part of our story is that when we became parents, it literally happened overnight. We'd only been married a couple of years. We were out of college only maybe a year and a half, building my company. And my husband had his first full-time job out of college. And so kids were not on our radar at all. And we weren't pursuing having children at that time. So becoming parents overnight was really unexpected. But it was also something that I just knew with every part of my soul and my body that was supposed to happen specifically for our two children.
Okay.
I just knew that we were supposed to be together.
Yeah.
And never at any point were we ever told, or was there ever any sort of reason to believe that after we became a family that we would never be together again. They were fully signed over to us. We had permanent guardianship of them.
So you didn't even have to worry about it anymore.
There was it was just done. And so the final step of that then would just to be signing and having the final adoption go through. Yeah. And at this point, it had been 4 years.
Okay.
And so when you're operating as a family and that's, and you're together and like, adoption is just the next natural step.
Totally.
And so when we entered into now this 2-year-long court battle, trying to keep our family together, that we never were under the impression and had no reason to believe we would never be together. It was very confusing for a lot of reasons. And then when the very people who gave us the children in the first place started making up the most horrific lies specifically about me because I was the mother figure in their life.
Sure.
And so if they could attack that, then they could just make our family feel less than a family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for 2 years when I would sit in court, I would hear so many horrible things about myself. And a lot of those things are very specific to our case. So I can't get into a lot of detail, but
I guess, like, how did they make you feel?
I would, at first it made me angry.
For sure.
I was confused and I was so angry how anyone could say any of those things about me, especially because they were so untrue and it was so opposite of the truth that it was almost comical at first. It was like, what is happening?
Right.
But then it kept going. And then...
It became serious.
Yeah. And then the other side's attorney was just obliterating me. Relentless. Yeah. And so after a while, I started questioning my abilities as a mom and wondering if I had been doing the best things for the kids and if just all of these things. And at the same time, I had no power to defend myself. I had no power to speak up and tell the truth. So it all just was caught in this internal world of turmoil that just started dragging me down to a depth that I didn't know was possible to get to and still keep living.
Because in addition to losing your children, it sounds like you almost were losing your identity at the same time because someone is like literally trying to strip you of who you thought you were your entire life. Like this good, wholesome person.
Yeah.
Someone's trying to take that away from you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And two, when we lost our kids, I also lost so much of my identity in being their mom because your mom's so much of who you are and what you do is wrapped up into protecting and caring for your children. So then after we lost the kids, I started feeling like, man, maybe they were right about me because I couldn't protect my children.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep them safe. And even though they were lying about so many other things, the overarching truth of it was that I lost my kids, so therefore I must be a really, really bad mom.
Right. Ooh, yeah. So it's like, not only did you, I mean, at that point you lost something so profound for you, and now you're telling yourself, okay, I am a bad person because this happened. This was stripped from me. Dang. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I felt so much guilt because in my mind I would think, what kind of person can't keep her family safe? What kind of woman can't keep her children safe?
Yeah.
What could I have done? Is there anything I could have done differently to make sure that their lives were more protected than they were? And it was just this constant pounding of myself, just trying to figure out what happened because what's true.
Mm-hmm. I get that. Yeah. Well, and like as someone for me who I actually did things that were not good. Basically I've struggled with my sexuality my entire life, and I created a like fake identity online. You know what catfishing is?
Yes.
I did that. So for like 8 years I did that, and I like throughout all this, the interesting thing is I did this kind of for two reasons. One, because I wanted to experience love, and I was too afraid to try and do this in a non-hidden way, essentially. And then two, I actually thought I was doing a good thing because I convinced myself I was doing a good thing because I was actually having these fake relationships with these girls, essentially, who were like the most broken of people. And I'm like, I'm helping them. So I'm doing this good thing. And so I'm kind of on the flip side of that, where I was actually doing something. I didn't necessarily have horrible intentions. Like I wasn't trying to ruin people's lives, but like I did something wrong. I did something I am not supposed to do. And it was because I had so much struggle and identity. And literally all of this was like stripped from me, and I had to literally face myself and say, I would say things like, what kind of psychotic person would do this, you know?
Yeah.
So I totally understand. I'm on the flip side again because I actually did things wrong, but it's like, I totally understand the pain of asking yourselves these questions.
Yeah.
Ooh, which is like so powerful. I'm probably going to cry. Because it's like this demon that you have to face that is telling you all these lies about yourself that's literally not true.
Yeah.
But what I did kind of adds up to it seeming true, you know? And you probably convinced yourself that there were things that you did that seemed true,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm.
And I think when we do that, it just spirals us into this darkness that everything just becomes really dark, and it starts becoming really hard to know where the light even is in your life anymore and how to get back out of it.
Mm-hmm. And like you don't even believe you're worthy of good things or love anymore.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll talk about, I think we have really touched on like the grief of our identity being lost, essentially. And talk about now, like, kind of coming out of that. So you talked about how it was exposed to you because all of these people are sharing all these lies about you. So you're thinking about these things. Now, when did you start to like really kind of rise up?
Man, I feel like that rising up is something that's...
And what cost came with that?
Yeah. Wow, that's a good question. I feel like rising up is something that is going to continue throughout my entire life. But for a while, I couldn't do anything other than just be buried by everything because it felt so heavy and I felt so dead, but I was alive.
Yeah.
That I didn't even know. I truly didn't understand that a person could feel the pain and the grief and the darkness that I felt after losing my kids and still have to live through it. And so I didn't even know how to get out of bed in the morning for probably about a year.
Okay.
And every day was a constant effort just to do the next right thing. And I had to learn how to be really patient with myself, and I had to be really loving, and how to relearn how to love myself and how to allow myself to have space to grieve.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There came a point where I looked in the mirror one day. You know, at this point, we had sold everything that we owned. We were living in Phoenix at the time.
Okay.
And we just I needed to experience life outside of our bubble of pain again. And so we needed to expand our world. So we sold everything we owned and we moved across the country to Nashville.
Okay.
And
dang, so this is all recent. Like you moved to Nashville fairly recently.
2 years ago,
yeah. Okay.
So we just lost our kids 2 years ago.
Okay.
2.5 years ago. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror one day, and the person who was staring back at me was unrecognizable. And she looked so deflated, like somebody had just taken a vacuum and sucked out
all the
everything. All the life was just gone. I mean, and physically, my face was droopy.
Yeah.
I had no color. My cheekbones were sticking out. I was just there.
Yeah.
I was existing, but not really alive.
Living. Yeah.
And I ran to my husband and I said, Mike, I can't wake up when I was 80 years old and regret not living my life because I was too sad to be a part of it.
Ooh.
I said, I have to figure out how to shine even in the darkest moments of my life.
Totally.
So that was kind of that turning moment of this is really hard and painful, but it's going to be more painful to let life just pass me by because I was too sad to live in it.
Kind of. Yeah. Well, and I get that too, because in the midst of my like rising up as well, before that, I had this period where I don't know if I literally looked myself in the mirror, but I had to like look at everything that I was doing in my life and be like, that does not add up to you loving yourself. Everything you're doing is like you hate yourself, essentially. Yeah. And I mean, I became a workaholic. Like I was in college and I went to hang out with friends. I bring my laptop. Specifically, one time where I was at a bar and I brought my laptop. And like, who does that? And I like ate till I was sick, all that kind of stuff. Like just awful things that were really painful. And it took me saying to myself very powerfully, I am so sick of being sick all the time.
Yeah.
And that's when I noticed like a shift inside of me, which it sounds like is exactly what you were doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we self-sabotage a little bit.
We do.
Because we're afraid. We're afraid. We're afraid that maybe we aren't worthy. And so if we can be the ones to just self-sabotage, then no one else is going to have to do it for us. Or
we're afraid of that rejection.
We're afraid of the rejection. I also think for me, something that's been really hard as I've been on my healing journey and have, been growing and just knowing that there is so much purpose in my pain, and my pain has now become my privilege because I can use it to help serve other people. Mm-hmm. It has been really hard though, because when pain becomes your comfort zone and then you start stepping out of it, my body physically, spiritually, emotionally wanted to protect me all the time from the next shoe dropping. And so the amount of anxiety that I would feel when I would feel joy.
Yeah.
Or the amount of fear I would feel when something good was happening.
Yeah.
Was so intense, because I knew that the higher my joy or those good feelings I felt, that the second something bad happened, I knew how far the drop is now.
Yep.
Because of what the depths of that loss, where it took me to. And so that's been hard. It's been hard to allow myself to just live fully and presently in joy, because I want to protect myself from being in that much pain again.
To embrace the joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Dang. Yeah. And I've heard people talk about that too before. I think sometimes I do that to myself, and it kind of is that self-sabotaging thing where like you experience something so great and you're like, oh gosh, it's almost too good to be true. Or then you say to yourself, okay, well, this just happened. That means something is going to be horrible now.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it has to even out somehow.
Right.
And
yeah. It's like, no, you can just have this joy.
Yeah.
Like it is okay to just have that.
And you deserve it just like everybody else
Mm-hmm.
does.
Yeah. Well, and talk about then too, like what you were going into in the beginning, the physical effects of all this, because I'm getting to that right now in my life where I'm literally starting to see how all of this has such a physical impact on you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I could honestly talk about this for so
Me too.
long.
I want to do so many podcasts on holistic health
it.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I have many different holistic doctors that I see, many different like kind of body intuitive therapists, massage therapists,
Can I ask you,
craniosacral. Yeah, I'll tell you after.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Craniosacral therapist. So just this week I had craniosacral therapy and also went to my intuitive. So they're two different people.
Okay. Yes.
But
that's amazing.
Something that happened at the beginning of this year, I was getting ready one morning and all of a sudden I had this sharp pain just shoot up the side of my neck.
Like
it dropped me
nervous
to my
system?
knees.
Okay.
And I was supposed to go on this lunch.
Yeah.
And I called my husband in. Look, it's like my throat is like.
I literally do that so often. I don't know. But when I talk, I don't. That's the weirdest thing. So when I'm not talking, I'm constantly clearing my throat.
It's crazy.
It's wild.
So so it dropped me to my knees in pain, and I hate going to the doctor so much. But I told my husband, I was like, you need to take me to the emergency room right now. There's something seriously wrong in my head. And we went there, and they couldn't find anything, but it was a little bit just inflamed, and they gave me morphine, which I had a horrible allergic reaction to. So everything was just crazy. But for the next several months, anytime I would get stressed out, this shooting pain would go up the side of my neck. And I just had this thought. I was like, I think that this is so much deeper than just physical pain.
Yes.
So this is when I started with my body intuitive.
Okay.
And my very first session, she explained to me that the amount of grief that I was carrying was starting all the way down in my stomach, but my body was so tight and clenched. It was like if you took like a strand and you're twisting it, and then at the very top it gets really, really tight.
Yeah.
That was what was happening to my neck and my head.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh, this is wild.
Yeah, so I had to release it.
Okay.
And for the past probably 6 months, I have been on this crazy journey of learning how to release and let go of trauma from my body.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is that last week, so my book, Born to Shine, which talks about my experience and really is a tool for women to help them shine in the darkest moments of their life. It comes out in October. Last week, we launched my tickets to my book tour.
Okay.
The day we launched, I started having my throat and voice symptoms flare up massively, even though it's something that I had worked through months ago and that finally fully cleared.
Right.
But the second they went on sale, and I know, especially with, what's inside of this book, my body just went back into, oh my gosh, like, are you safe to do this? Is this okay? Is it going to be received okay? And I always have to just tell myself that none of this is for any type of validation at all, that I wrote the truth of what I know and believe in my core to be true. And I know that the women who need it are going to find it and it's going to help them too. And I just have to keep serving myself with that truth.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, like, if you call it the enemy or like self-sabotage or whatever you call it. But the thing I've realized about the most in my life is as soon as you are about to have your biggest breakthrough, your biggest awakening, that thing, again, that self-sabotage, resistance, whatever, the enemy is going to attack that so hard because that thing wants to keep you so small.
Yeah. And
because it knows your power is the thing. Oh, that is, I totally get that. Yeah. But you're still going through with it.
You have to. And I think someone explained it to me once. She said, Ashley, you're holding yourself so small. I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing to think of it. And I think that we hold ourselves small because we're afraid of what could be or what might be. And so we just create just little safety pocket that just smushes everything that could come to life if we allowed it to.
Right. Yeah. And I actually just featured my doctor on my podcast this week. Yeah. And like the craziest experience for me with my doctor was a couple months ago, I think 2 months ago, I had like a ton of eczema on my hand and it was like cut up and just really nasty. It got to a point where it was just nasty. Like my hand had all these like cuts and bleeding on it and all that kind of stuff. And through like emotional plus physical healing, like adjustments and stuff, he was able to totally clear it in like months. Wild. But then the other half of my physical ailment is this clearing my throat all the time. And so we know that this is what we're working on now. And when I was in his office, like, I think like a month or 2 months ago, maybe, he pushed on my chest and was like, all right, let me know how much this hurts. And he didn't push that hard. It was just kind of like, of course you can't feel this, but like just kind of sitting on my chest. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this hurts so bad, like excruciating pain. And he goes, that's because you are literally trying to block everyone from your heart. You need to just let go and just allow forgiveness into your life and allow people to love you. And I was like, wow. So ever since then, I have been on a journey just again in the last month or two to heal as much as absolutely possible, because he basically said, this is something that you are going to have great power with once you overcome this. Yes. And like, you have to rise up and face this pain that's in your life. And it's just, every time I think about it, I'm like, I literally can't believe that my physical body is like reacting. Yeah. But now I fully understand why. Yeah. Because he basically is saying, you have never felt like you had a voice and you're constantly trying to like suffocate your voice.
Yeah.
When really you have such a great voice and you just need to let it be heard.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. And I think one of the amazing parts about our bodies is that it wants to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to
Yes.
teach it, hey, thank you for protecting me.
Yeah.
But I'm safe.
Yeah.
And so you can loosen the grip
Mhm.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Something that
Ooh.
I've done. Okay, maybe you can take this for,
Yes.
for your healing
I
your
would
voice
love
thing.
that. Yeah.
Okay, so part of the therapy that I have done for healing is called EMDR therapy.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
And I was explaining to my EMDR therapist one day that when I spoke, she would ask me what comes to your mind. When you think of yourself speaking, what images come to your mind? And I was closing my eyes and I was doing, because in EMDR you have buzzers.
That's right.
And you follow them and it's a whole thing. Anyways, I kept picturing a pile of rocks in my stomach. And every time I tried to speak, this pile of rocks would just be trying to come out. And then they would just get stuck. And so I was relating with what I had to say to just this heavy pile of rocks that hurt and was jarring and that nobody wanted.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I believe about myself.
Yeah.
So we did a couple more exercises, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have rocks.
Whoa.
I have Skittles. My voice is Skittles.
Okay.
And so now when I speak,
Mhm.
I literally
Visualize
envision
it.
Skittles coming up and creating a rainbow out of my mouth.
What?
But here's the thing about
That's
Skittles.
insane.
Skittles are bright and amazing.
Yeah.
And still, not everybody loves them. And it's okay.
Ooh.
So
wow.
I can say my truth
Yeah.
and I can say my Skittles.
But
And
not
then everyone can choose if they like it or not. But that has no reflection on me or what my Skittles are. It is what it is. And everyone can decide how they take it.
Yeah.
So you can do what you want with
I'm definitely going to sit on
the
that
Skittle
one.
thing.
Yeah.
But it's something that has helped me a lot.
Wow. And do you think that lump in your throat was like the rock?
The lump was the rock. The lump's gone
Yes,
now. Totally
right.
gone.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
What? I'm gonna be sitting on that for a freaking long time.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay. So now, I mean, you really are like speaking out and you're healing from this. So kind of share what that's been like.
I think that my biggest point of healing has been being able to just stay true to my truth and then allow that to help serve the lives of other people.
Yes.
That instead of being so, so impacted by what everyone else is doing, that I can just it took me a long time to become comfortable with being still in my life.
Oh, yep.
But once I can do that, then I'm able to connect to myself and a higher power that teaches me and helps me heal. And then I can use that as my momentum to help serve and lead and bless other people.
Yeah. And so would you say that you've kind of stopped striving for your worth at this point?
Yeah.
And now you're just resting and knowing that you are enough, just as you are. You don't have to earn it. You're just enough.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so powerful. And like has honestly been a very, it seems like consistent theme of my podcast lately. Like I think the God, whoever is speaking to me about this, like you are supposed to stop striving for your worth and just rest in knowing that you are enough. And that while I am resting, there is still work being done that is out of my control.
Yes.
Which is freaking insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we can trust the process of life and that we're safe in it. And that it's all. I read something by Rumi 2 days ago. I saw it on a little note card. But it says, live as if you believe life has been rigged in your favor.
Ooh, yes.
So that means in your periods of just stillness and resting, just knowing that no matter what, everything is rigged for you.
Yes.
And if you can look at things like that, just that little shift in mindset can change so much in how we feel about ourselves and what's happening around us.
Right. And then we create this like empowered state for ourselves and for other people, because one, our pain brings healing to the world, but two, it's like we've learned that, or we've started adopting this truth that we are enough just as we are, and we don't have to really do anything to prove that.
Yeah.
And so now that we understand that about ourselves, we can actually start to love and serve others out of this almost like altruistic way, I guess would be maybe a good word for it, where we're just doing it because we want to instead of because we feel like we have to get something from that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, completely.
Oh, dang. Well, so, okay. How is your story, just with everything and like worth and stuff specifically, how is all of this like really broken chains for other people? How have you seen that?
Oh my goodness. I'll give you one example that happened recently. So we went on for my Born to Shine tour. We went on a spring tour.
Okay.
And at the end of each night, so I'm speaking for an hour and a half to the women there.
Okay.
And then they go through a couple of things to just help them feel lighter when they leave. And then at the end, anyone who wants to wait in line to take a photo and have me sign their book could do that. There was a mom who's probably in her 50s and her daughter who was a teenager come. And they were both just sobbing by the time they got to me in line. And the mom hugged me first and she said, you have no idea, but you literally saved my daughter's life. Wow. And then her daughter came and she's just sobbing and she just like collapsed into me and I was just holding her.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what any of it meant, but I just knew that something I had said had impacted her. So then probably a couple weeks later, the daughter messaged me on Instagram and told me that she had been really suicidal and that I had posted something very specific one day and was exactly what she needed to hear. And she was just able
to
let it go.
Wow.
But I get so many messages like that because I think that when we share our truth, a lot of us share the same truths.
Yeah,
and
we do.
A lot of us struggle with the same setbacks and the same pain and the same fear. I always say the details of our lives are different.
Yes.
But the feelings are exactly the same.
Yep.
And so when I can connect with somebody and they can feel like, oh my gosh, I am not alone in this thing, it helps just those chains of pain or suffering. Yeah. I believe that pain and suffering are two different things. Oh. That we can experience pain and joy. And pain, when we stop running from it, that's when we don't have to suffer from it anymore. When we invite it in to teach us is when the suffering stops. Because suffering is a feeling of hopelessness and despair.
Yep.
I'm always going to have the pain of losing my children.
Right.
But I don't always have to suffer.
You have the joy at the same time.
And I can have the pain and the joy. So when other people can have their pain and learn how to have it become fertile ground in their lives, then that's when we're able to drop the chains that hold us back.
Yeah. That's good. And I love, like, especially when people who have gone through so much can literally say on the other side, yes, I have this pain, but also at the same time, I have the greatest joy I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so powerful that they can coexist, because I think so much of our life is spent on trying to get rid of pain and like eliminate pain. And in the process of that, we not only lose who we are, but we don't build on any resilience either. So like when we come under attack, we don't know how to fight it, you know? So, oh, dang. So who would you say Ashley Lemieux is now that you have unlocked your freedom?
Ashley Lemieux, I am who I'm supposed to be now without the input of other people. That I'm just me. Yeah. Outside of any other label.
Yes. Yeah. So you've really come to realize who you specifically are. Yeah. That's amazing, which I think is what freedom is all about. Yeah. It's just being you and your full self. Yeah. Yeah. What would you say, has there been like maybe like a inspirational quote or maybe someone's story who's just really connected with your own that has really like helped you through all this or gotten you, like given you the hope that you needed to get out of things?
Well, man, there's been a lot of different people and different things that I have read. There's this one book called You Can Heal Your Life.
Okay.
And that came at a really, really pivotal time, and it taught me, because here's my thing. I love being able to share my story to help other people heal in theirs.
Mm-hmm.
But healing doesn't come from any other person. It has to come from within.
Yeah.
So we can hear all the stories or meet all the people or read all the books, but until we connect, that our healing comes because of us, like our internal power and then our higher power working together to create that healing. We can't look for it through other people.
Right.
So the book You Can Heal Your Life was just life-changing for me because it gave me the permission to be as powerful as we all are and know that there are certain things that I can do to release pain and give myself permission to keep moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. And then also too, like as someone, so I was kind of mentioning, I like am just starting my own business now.
Yes.
And so I'm like, I feel like I'm not really supposed to strive in this for once in my life. Like I'm not, and I'm a very planned person, but I actually feel like for once in my life, I'm not really supposed to have much of a plan.
Which is terrifying, I know.
Yeah. And I'm like, why would I not have a plan? And I used to have such huge dreams for myself. And I think as I've grown older, which I think this happens for everybody, I've kind of let those dreams die because reality sort of sets in. So I'm like kind of getting back to this place, like having this time now where I'm not working full time for someone has allowed me the creative space to like dream again.
Yeah.
But I don't want to like strive to create these opportunities for myself. So what would you say to like someone because you have a successful business. So what would you say has been maybe like a key for you and even for your business in just, I guess, thriving, if that makes sense?
No, yeah, that's a really good question. So I'll use my book as the example because growing up, like I said, I always wrote. I'd throw it under my bed and I wanted to become a writer.
Yeah.
But everyone told me that was too hard or too dumb or not enough money or whatever the thing was. So I dropped that dream.
Okay.
Because of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 2 years ago, I knew that in order for me to keep moving forward in my life, I needed to write a book.
Okay.
I had to.
Mm-hmm.
And that very same day, one of the biggest literary agents in the country emailed me asking if I'd ever considered writing a book and if he might represent me.
What?
Which is like the hardest, 99%, the hardest part of getting a publishing deal is getting an agent to represent you. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is my moment. Like things are coming.
Yeah.
Things are coming together. We worked almost 6 months on this book proposal.
Okay.
I had planned a trip to go to Europe for the day after the day after we were supposed to get a publishing deal so that I could leave for 6 weeks and write my book and then release it to the world and other things. So on the day before we left on our 6-week trip to have me write my book, got the final letter back from the 30 publishers that we sent it to.
Okay.
Rejecting my book. Nobody picked it up. Not one person.
Yeah. What?
And it was like 100% sure thing that someone would. And I remember getting that last rejection and being like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I finally put myself back out there.
Yep.
This was my dream. Yeah. I had my agent. I had like, how is this even possible? And so I went on the trip, didn't write a thing. I was so pissed. I decided that I wasn't going to write ever again. That dream was not something that I was wrong about my dream. My agent called me one day and said, Ashley, it's in my best interest to represent you and find you a book deal, but it's in your best interest to not listen to what everyone else has said and write your book. And I was like,
that's a dang good agent.
Like, you're insane. I'm not doing that. Because writing and publishing your own book, like how? Who does that? How can you do that?
I don't know. Very few people.
So I tried I tried to just forget about it.
Yeah.
And sorry, this is a very long answer to
Oh,
your
I'm
question.
totally
but
fine
okay.
with that. I love a good story.
Okay. So I was like, I can't do that, but it kept just eating at me. And I was like, you know what? I have to write this book because I got to a place where the validation of other people did not matter anymore. I was writing it because I knew that I needed to, and I knew the truth. All the truths that needed to go into this book needed to be sent out to other women who could have it. So writing it from a place where there was no expectations and I was just working my butt off knowing that there was not going to be a big reward, but I was going to be hustling, trying to figure out how to get this thing printed and into the hands of women. Doing that changed everything for me. And then when I finished the book, I actually got picked up by a publisher.
Okay.
I had to go through that process. And so all of that to say,
Wow.
I think when you start your business or when you go after the dream, or you have to do it from a place of like your deepest truth
And like authenticity.
and not doing it for the validation of other people, or sometimes money is that validation because if we're making a lot of money, oh, this must be good, or this must be right. I must be using my talents for the right thing.
Yeah.
And yes, that will all come, but it first has to start from a place of you're pouring everything you know to be true into building your company, regardless of what the outcome is going to be.
Oh, that's so good. Because I think that's probably my biggest struggle with my podcast. Like, especially since you've done several podcasts and stuff before, like, I don't know. I feel like mine goes significantly deeper than most people's, but it seems like that it's like a niche. And it seems like to me, the most popular ones are the ones that are kind of like not surface level, but that talk more about like business or just kind of like, oh yeah, you overcame this, so how are you successful now? Like, people don't really talk about the pain and like the grief, which is just with my own story, like I have to talk about that. I just have to. And I think I always fear that because mine is so niche and so unique and kind of untapped, it's not going to go anywhere. But then I hear a voice, and I believe it's God saying, actually, I'm going to use this and take this way farther than you could ever imagine. Yeah. And I got to admit, knowing that on a daily basis is super hard for me. And I'm like, why don't I just do what everyone else is doing?
It's so hard. And also doing healing work is the hardest work. Yeah. And it's the work that a lot of people aren't ready for yet. Right. Mm-hmm. And
I wasn't even ready until recently. So
right. Yeah. And that's why it's so important that it is talked about and that it is something that people have tools and resources for, so that when they're ready, they have a starting place and then they're not so lonely in it.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for that. That's like honestly really encouraging for me just to hear your own story too, because I always want to come at this with the right intention and from a place of like, this is personal growth for me and I want to heal through this. Yeah. But I have to say, I surround myself with people who are like very, very successful, and it kind of not forces me, but it like challenges me to like strive. And I think there's a healthy striving, but it also challenges me to be like, okay, am I trying to create my own success here? Or am I just, well, whatever the flip side of that. Am I trying to create it, or am I trying to, I guess, allow the opportunities to come to me? Yeah. So yeah, it's been tough.
Sometimes there's a great balance, and there's also everything right and okay with being successful. Yes. And I think especially as women, a lot of times we are afraid of to be successful because we're told that we have different types of roles in our lives. Yeah. But you are deserving of success just like every other person. So it's also something that you can't hide away from.
Right. Oh, that's powerful. There's a lot from this conversation that I'm going to have to sit on when I go back home. But I guess just to wrap things up, where can people find you on social media?
So I love our community on social on Instagram. You can just find me on my name, Ashley K. Lemieux. Okay. And then my website, you can go and connect at theshineproject.com/tour. You can get my book there and then also see if I'm coming to your city. So,
which you are coming to Nashville, you said.
Coming to Nashville.
Sick.
Yep.
What day?
October 12th is in Nashville, and the tour kicks off October 7th, and everyone who pre-orders the book gets to live stream our live event on October 7th. It's going to be a really powerful night.
Okay.
So
Cool. I'm locking that in October 7th and 12th, you said, for Nashville?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Sounds great. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Like, sharing so much of your story, but also, like, and the pain within that, but also sharing so much of the hope that you have found in just allowing your voice to be heard and remembering who you truly are, like your real identity. So thank you for sharing that.
No, it's my privilege too. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for checking out this podcast today with our guest, Ashley Lemieux. And if you want more life-giving conversations like what you heard today, you can click the big red subscribe button. Also, I would love to chat with you guys. So go follow me on Instagram. It's The Rage Boss. So you'll find some hopefully weird, wild, but also inspiring content on there. And until next time, we enjoyed having you, and we will see you then. Bye.